On the evening of February 9, 2004, 21-year-old nursing student Maura Murray vanished on a desolate stretch of Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. To this day, no one knows what happened to her. No confirmed sightings, no phone calls, no trace of her whereabouts. It's as if she stepped out of her wrecked car and disappeared into thin air. But before we get to that snowy roadside in rural New Hampshire, we need to rewind and understand who Maura was, what was happening in her life, and why her disappearance has become one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries. Who was Maura Murray? Maura wasn't just a name in a headline. She was the daughter of Fred Murray, a devoted father who would spend years searching the White Mountains for her, and the sister of Julie and Kathleen, both of whom described her as quiet, smart, and fiercely competitive. At the time of her disappearance, Maura was a junior at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, studying nursing. Friends described her as disciplined but sometimes withdrawn, someone who carried private burdens that few fully understood. On the surface, Maura's life looked promising. A caring family, supportive friends, and a steady boyfriend. But just beneath that, cracks were beginning to show. Cracks that some believe may hold the key to her disappearance. The days before the disappearance. In the week leading up to February 9th, several unusual events unfolded in Maura's life. February 5th, 2004. While working her campus security job, Maura broke down in tears after receiving a phone call from her sister. To this day, no one knows what was said on that call, only that it seemed to shake her deeply. February 7th, 2004. Maura's father, Fred, drove up to Amherst to help her shop for a car. That night, Maura borrowed Fred's Toyota Corolla and got into a minor accident after leaving a party. While the crash was not serious, she had been drinking, and police cited her for the incident. February 9th, 2004. Maura emailed her professor saying she would be missing class due to a death in the family. There was no death. Instead, she packed clothes, toiletries, and personal items into her car and withdrew $280 from an ATM. These actions raised chilling questions. Where was she going? Why the secrecy? Was she planning to run away? Or was she setting herself up for something no one could predict? The last known movements. That afternoon, Maura set off from Amherst in her Saturn sedan. She purchased alcohol at a local liquor store, including a box of wine, vodka, and other beverages. Later, a receipt would show she stopped at a drive-through ATM. At around 7:30 p.m., Maura crashed her car on a remote curve of Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. Several neighbors heard the accident and called 911. When a local bus driver stopped to help, Maura insisted she had already called AAA, though no such call was ever placed. Within minutes, when police arrived on the scene, Maura was gone. The driver's door was locked, the airbags had deployed, and her belongings, including alcohol and a box of wine, were still inside. But Maura? She had vanished without a trace. The first hours. Search dogs picked up Maura's scent for about 100 yards east of her vehicle, then suddenly lost the trail. No footprints in the snow beyond that point. No sign of struggle, no indication of which direction she had gone. To investigators, it was as though Maura had been plucked out of existence. In those first crucial hours, police believed Maura had simply wandered off, perhaps dazed or intoxicated. But as the hours turned into days, and days into weeks, the truth became harder to explain. The haunting question: what could cause a promising young woman, just 21 years old, to vanish in such a way? Was she running from something? Running to something? Or was she taken against her will? The Maura Murray case is not just a missing person investigation. It's a riddle that combines secrecy, mystery, and countless dead ends. For nearly 2 decades, it has fueled one of the internet's largest true crime communities, spawning documentaries, books, and online forums. And it all began on that cold February night, when a car crash in the White Mountains turned into one of America's most enduring unsolved mysteries. When police arrived on Route 112 on the night of February 9, 2004, they expected to find a young woman shaken up from a car crash. Instead, they found an empty vehicle, a scattering of belongings, and a mystery that would only grow darker with time. What began as a simple roadside accident quickly spiraled into one of the most puzzling missing persons cases in America. And in the crucial hours following Maura Murray's disappearance, mistakes were made. Mistakes that may have cost investigators valuable opportunities to uncover the truth. The scene of the crash. Maura's black Saturn was found facing the wrong way on a curve of Route 112. The airbags had deployed, and the windshield was cracked. The car appeared to have slid into a snowbank. Inside, police discovered an empty beer bottle, a box of wine partially spilled in the back seat, a map of the White Mountains, her personal belongings, including clothing and toiletries. One key detail stood out. Her cell phone, credit cards, and ATM card were missing, but none were ever used again. If Maura had walked away voluntarily, why didn't she call for help? Why leave behind most of her possessions? Witness accounts. The most important witness that night was Butch Atwood, a local school bus driver who lived nearby. He stopped at the scene shortly after the crash and offered assistance. Atwood later told police Maura appeared shaken but calm. She insisted she had already called AAA, though cell service in that area was unreliable, and no record of such a call was ever found. Atwood continued on his way, assuming police would arrive shortly. By the time they did, Maura was gone. Another neighbor reported seeing someone walking quickly eastbound on the road around the same time. But was it Maura, or someone else entirely? Law enforcement's initial response. The Haverhill Police Department initially treated the case as a routine walkaway. They believed Maura had simply wandered off into the woods after the crash, perhaps intoxicated, and would turn up safe. But this assumption would later draw sharp criticism. In the first 24 to 48 hours, when search efforts are most critical, the investigation lacked urgency. Bloodhounds were eventually brought in, and they traced Maura's scent for about 100 yards down the road before losing the trail. This suggested she may have gotten into another vehicle. But whose vehicle, and why? The search efforts. Over the next several days, local law enforcement, volunteers, and even the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department combed the area. Helicopters, infrared cameras, and cadaver dogs were deployed. The searches yielded nothing. No footprints leading into the woods, no discarded belongings, no body. It was as though Maura had vanished into thin air. Fred Murray, Maura's father, was furious at what he saw as a lack of urgency. He insisted his daughter had been abducted and demanded a more thorough search. But investigators weren't convinced. Early theories. From the very beginning, two competing theories dominated the case. Voluntary disappearance. Police speculated that Maura may have staged her disappearance, fleeing the stress of school, family troubles, and possible legal consequences from her earlier car accident. Foul play. Her family, however, strongly believed she had been abducted. The sudden loss of her scent on the roadside seemed to support the idea that she entered another car, either willingly or by force. Theories quickly multiplied. Some believed she ran away to start a new life. Others suspected she was picked up by a stranger, or worse, someone she knew. The missed opportunities. Critics argue that the first 36 hours of the investigation were critical and mishandled. Had police immediately treated the disappearance as a potential crime, the search might have uncovered fresh tracks, evidence, or witnesses. Instead, the delay gave way to speculation, theories, and endless questions. The trail grew cold almost as soon as it began. The family in pain. For Fred Murray, the frustration was unbearable. He told reporters he was convinced his daughter was no longer alive, but he refused to stop searching. Weekend after weekend, Fred returned to the White Mountains, scouring the woods, rivers, and back roads for any sign of his daughter. The case was no longer just a police investigation, it was becoming a national obsession. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. When the official investigation into Maura Murray's disappearance began to stall, a new force stepped in: the internet. From online forums to Reddit threads, blogs, and YouTube documentaries, Maura's case became one of the first missing person mysteries to be dissected in real time by digital detectives. What started as a tragedy in New Hampshire soon became a nationwide obsession, drawing thousands of strangers into the search for answers. The early online presence. In 2004, internet forums like Web Sleuths and the Maura Murray Disappearance Forum became gathering places for armchair detectives. Users meticulously analyzed police reports, phone records, timelines, and satellite maps. Every detail of Maura's life was scrutinized. Her ATM withdrawal of $280. The email she sent about a fabricated death in the family. The alcohol she purchased before leaving town. Her interactions with family, friends, and her boyfriend. Nothing was too small to dissect. And as theories spread, so did the tension between truth and speculation. Theories that took hold. Several theories emerged, each more compelling and controversial than the last. The voluntary escape theory. Some believed Maura planned her disappearance, using the car crash as a way to vanish and start over. The packed bags, cash withdrawal, and alcohol purchases were seen as preparation for a getaway. The random abduction theory. Others argued she fell victim to foul play. The idea that her scent disappeared abruptly supported the possibility she got into another vehicle, either willingly or by force. The local connection theory. A darker theory suggested someone in the Haverhill area knew more than they were saying. Some online sleuths speculated a local predator or even law enforcement may have played a role. The suicide theory. A minority believed Maura may have been overwhelmed by personal struggles and ended her own life, though no evidence has ever supported this. Each theory fueled endless debates, keeping Maura's name alive long after traditional media coverage faded. Documentaries and media spotlight. As years passed, the case attracted the attention of national media. The Disappeared series on Investigation Discovery featured Maura's story, reigniting public interest. Later, journalist James Renner published extensive research on the case, raising controversial questions about Maura's personal life and potential secrets. His work split the true crime community. Some praised his dedication, while others accused him of invading the Murray family's privacy. Then came the 2017 Oxygen documentary series, The Disappearance of Maura Murray. This 6-part series brought new interviews, expert analysis, and national exposure. It reignited speculation and introduced Maura's case to a younger generation of internet sleuths. A digital obsession. For nearly 2 decades, Maura's disappearance has remained a fixture in true crime communities. Thousands of YouTube videos, podcasts, TikTok breakdowns, and Reddit threads keep the case alive. In fact, the mystery of Maura Murray has been called the first missing person case of the social media age. Unlike older cold cases, this one lives online, constantly evolving as new people discover it and add their own theories. But with this attention also comes controversy. Maura's family has often expressed frustration, feeling that wild speculation about her personal life has overshadowed the real search for answers. The double-edged sword of online sleuthing. There's no doubt the internet has helped keep Maura's story alive. Without it, her case may have faded into obscurity long ago. But the constant speculation has also created noise. False leads, conspiracy theories, and accusations that distract from the truth. Still, the fact remains. Without the online true crime community, Maura Murray's case might not still be at the center of national conversation nearly 20 years later. As the years dragged on, the disappearance of Maura Murray only grew more unsettling. No body, no confirmed sightings, and no solid evidence. Yet every so often, a strange lead would surface, sparking hope only to collapse under scrutiny. This cycle of clues and dead ends has haunted investigators, her family, and the army of internet sleuths who remain obsessed with her case. Reported sightings. In the months after Maura vanished, several people claimed to have seen her. A woman resembling Maura was reportedly spotted at a rest stop in New Hampshire, appearing disoriented. Another claimed sighting placed her in a nearby bar days after the crash. Over the years, tips have surfaced from across the country, from Quebec to Florida, alleging she was alive and living under a new identity. But none of these reports were ever verified. Not a single confirmed sighting of Maura exists after February 9, 2004. Possible links to other cases. Some investigators and online sleuths have drawn chilling parallels between Maura's case and other missing person mysteries in the region. Just 2 years after Maura vanished, Brianna Maitland, a young woman from Vermont, disappeared under eerily similar circumstances. Her car found abandoned on a rural road, her fate unknown. Other unsolved disappearances in the White Mountains and surrounding areas have led some to believe a predator may have been operating in the region. Could Maura have been one victim in a series of connected crimes? Or are these similarities only coincidence? The house on Route 112. One of the most disturbing rumors centered around a nearby house not far from where Maura's car was found. Years after the disappearance, cadaver dogs reportedly alerted to the possible presence of human remains in the home's basement. However, when investigators conducted a ground-penetrating radar search, no conclusive evidence was found. Still, the suspicion lingered. Did someone living along Route 112 know more than they were telling? Or was this just another false lead in a case filled with dead ends? The mysterious call records. Phone records also raised unsettling questions. On the day she vanished, Maura made a series of calls, including one to a fellow nursing student about renting a condo in Vermont. Why was she making travel plans to a different state just hours before she disappeared? And why did she tell her professors there had been a death in the family? A lie that suggested she was hiding something. These inconsistencies fueled theories that Maura was running from something or someone before her disappearance. The search that never ends. Despite hundreds of searches by law enforcement, volunteers, and even private investigators hired by the Murray family, not a single piece of physical evidence has ever surfaced to explain what happened to Maura. No clothing, no phone, no body. The silence of the case is perhaps its most haunting detail. Hope and heartbreak. For Maura's family, each new lead brings both hope and heartbreak. Fred Murray has never stopped searching, convinced his daughter met with foul play. Every unturned stone in the White Mountains is another chance to bring her home. Nearly 2 decades have passed since Maura Murray disappeared on a quiet stretch of Route 112 in New Hampshire. In that time, countless searches, investigations, and theories have emerged, yet the most haunting detail remains. No one knows what happened to her. The absence of answers has turned her disappearance into one of the most enduring unsolved mysteries in American history. It is a story not just of one missing young woman, but of how mystery itself can take on a life of its own. The theories that refuse to die. To this day, the case balances on 3 major possibilities. She ran away. Some believe Maura staged her disappearance, possibly starting a new life somewhere far from Amherst and the pressures she faced. But how could she have lived undetected for nearly 20 years without a trace? She met with foul play. Many, including her family, believe Maura was abducted shortly after her crash. The sudden loss of her scent and the eerie silence of the woods support this chilling theory. She died accidentally. Another theory is that Maura wandered off into the wilderness, succumbing to the cold. Yet, despite exhaustive searches, not a shred of physical evidence has ever been found. Each theory has supporters, each has flaws, and none can fully explain what happened that night. The case that changed true crime. Maura's disappearance is more than a mystery. It is a cultural phenomenon. It was one of the first missing persons cases to explode in the age of the internet, with thousands of strangers turning into amateur detectives. Her story has been featured on documentaries, podcasts, books, and countless YouTube channels. The case reshaped how the public engages with true crime, showing both the power and the pitfalls of online sleuthing. Some argue the attention has helped keep the investigation alive. Others believe it has clouded the truth with noise and speculation. But one thing is certain: Maura Murray's name has not been forgotten. A family's endless search. For the Murray family, the pain never fades. Fred Murray, Maura's father, has spent years searching the White Mountains, holding on to hope that one day he'll find answers, or at least bring his daughter home. Every anniversary of her disappearance brings renewed media attention, but also renewed grief. Time moves forward, but for her family, the mystery is frozen on February 9, 2004. Why this case still haunts America. So why does the disappearance of Maura Murray continue to captivate us after all these years? Because it sits at the intersection of fear and possibility. Because any theory could be true. Because the lack of closure is more terrifying than any single explanation. Maura's case forces us to confront the unsettling reality that a person can vanish, without a trace, without a reason, without an ending. The unfinished story. In the end, what happened to Maura Murray is a question without an answer, but perhaps that's why it still echoes in America's collective memory. Because until the truth is uncovered, until someone comes forward, until new evidence is found, the story will remain open, haunting, and unfinished.